If you live in Alberta, maybe Saskatchewan, you might want to listen up. This is for you. And if you're in British Columbia, you might want to pay attention as well. So, on my social media right now, there's a lot of really, really perturbed Albertans who are upset about the provincial government's decision to privatize, well, not privatize, but open up the healthcare system to two tiers. That means that there's going to be a private track for treatment and surgeries and so on, and then there'll be a public track. And doctors can move back and forth between them. And doctors in particular are really upset about this. They say it's not going to improve access at all. It's not going to improve the level of service. In fact, it will damage it. Uh, okay, so there's a fundamental flaw in the conversation that everybody's having around this, and that is they assume that Alberta Premier Danielle Smith and her UCP government are trying to govern the province and make it better. That would be the argument for moving to two-tier healthcare. Is it would be better. It would be better governance if it had a private component to it. She's not trying to govern. And this, it's called ungoverning. And it directly comes from the MAGA movement and Project 2025 out of the Heritage Foundation. And the idea is to break the state, break the administrative state, the welfare state, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, the machinery of government. You ungovern. You reduce services. You underfund it, like she's doing for education right now. You break it and break it and break it. Now, sometimes, like Donald Trump, deploys this strategy. And there's a great article in Foreign Affairs magazine a couple of months ago. This is where I got the idea from. Several academics. I interviewed Russell Muirhead, from Dartmouth College, and he was one of the two authors of this article called Ungoverning. And it sets out how Trump has no intention of governing. He's there to break stuff. And sometimes he'll throw a hand grenade in it, like Doge. Or sometimes he'll take a sledgehammer to it. And sometimes all he's doing is throwing sand in the gears so that it may take a little longer to break it, but it will break it eventually. And this is essentially what Danielle Smith is doing. There's a limit because Alberta is not as far down the road as the U.S. is, and so she doesn't have quite the political latitude to do the kind of ungoverning that Trump can do, but it comes from exactly the same place. And so when she doesn't care that the doctors think the two-tier medicine is going to be worse. That's not the point. The point is to break the public component of it and shift as much over time onto the private sector, where people can make more money and insurance companies can make more money, and you get the picture. So she's doing this for everything. She's doing it in education. She's doing it in regulation. She's doing it in policing. With this idea of an Alberta, she's undermining the very basis of the administrative state, which has been the basis of Canadian society at both the federal level and the provincial level since at least 1945, after the end of the Second World War. And so the point here is not whether or not the letting more private services into the public healthcare model in Alberta is better or worse. That's not it at all. The question is, how is she trying to break it? And how is she trying to make it unsustainable? How is she trying to make it to make it either not function or function much more poorly? Now, I've seen some people on there who probably, at some point were supporters of Medicare, but now they can't get access. And they're saying about their relatives, oh my God, it's so bad they've got this, disease or hips or knees or whatever it is, and, they're suffering and they can't get access. They can't. So I don't care about Medicare anymore. I'm not prepared to watch my relatives suffer just for your principles. Exactly what Danielle Smith wants. That's how you ungovern. Is you make people frustrated, and those people who have money or can afford insurance, next thing you know, they're demanding more access to private services. I know some part of this has been around. I mean, I remember debates over two-tier healthcare years and years and years ago. So this is not entirely new, but it's the way she's going about it and how closely it mirrors what Trump is doing down in the U.S. Just not think of it this way: Trump 1.0 didn't do anything close to this because he couldn't. He didn't have the people. He wasn't as familiar with how the federal government works, and so he tried some things. But a lot of the people he chose as cabinet secretaries or advisors kind of acted as guardrails and kept him from his worst instincts and the worst advice of his advisors. Not Trump 2.0. They came in so much better prepared right from the very beginning. I mean, what was Doge about? It was firing federal civil servants that were considered to be redundant, or that they, I don't know, some 25-year-old coder didn't like their job title, and so they fired them. That's basically trying to break the machinery of government. And so Albertans have to make up their minds, are they okay with that? Not just to have, government modified, not just to have it shrunk, because I mean, that's an old conservative argument, right? Like a Ronald Reagan or a Ralph Klein. They would say, no, 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 no. We're conservatives. We believe in less government, smaller government, more private sector. Okay, that's a fair argument. We've had that for as long as I can remember in this country, decades and decades. That's the idea of Canada, is that we're a relatively flat society and we just continually renegotiate what it means to be Canadian and how much government we want and how much we don't want, and on and on. But that's not what's going on here. And so what you have to decide is whether or not you're going to push back and you're going to say that ungoverning is not acceptable. Because one of the things you can be sure of is that Danielle Smith will be exactly like Donald Trump. The more she does, the more she pushes, the more she learns where people are not prepared to push back, that's where she'll push harder. And this will escalate and escalate and escalate until finally the administrative state will be broken beyond repair. And then her work here will be done. And then I don't know what happens after that. She moves on, whatever. Doesn't matter. But that's what's going on here. This is not about, whether some particular move, like going to two-tier healthcare is good or bad. This is part of the larger strategy of breaking the administrative state, the machinery of government. It's ungoverning.